Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. Today I am going to be reviewing volume 7 of the sports manga Haikyu. And this is what the cover looks like. I read this in the ebook format and this is by Haruichi Furudate. So as obvious by the fact that I'm on volume 7, I read volumes 1 through 6 and I have been enjoying the series, loving the series, so I wanted to talk about volume 7. So first of all, if you have not watched my reviews of volumes 1 through 6, you can find those on my channel. They should all be on a manga playlist, so go look at those if you haven't seen them or not familiar with the story so that you can be caught up, because I'm going to assume that you are familiar with the events in volumes 1 through 6 when going into volume 7. So volume 7. The first thing I want to say is, well, this is a subjective claim. Haikyu usually appears on lists of top sports manga of all time, and I have been recommended this book in the past, or this series in the past, and I have definitely been sleeping on it. So I don't really know why I decided to put it off this long, but volume 7 I feel like is where the series is really switching from good to great. So this series, up to this point, I've been really enjoying the series. It's definitely been no problem there. I've been enjoying the characters, the interaction. I'm really invested in the story. I want this team to win. But volume 7 is where I feel like I became emotionally very involved in the characters, and the whole manga series kind of went from good, really good, high 4-star to 5-star. And I feel like that's just, it's kind of taken it up a notch and taken it to that 5-star level, and I'm starting to see why it has been billed as the top sports manga, or one of the top sports manga. That's a subjective title. It could not be your top sports manga, but I see why it's given this title by so many lists and so many people, and why I've gotten so many recommendations for the series in the past, because it really does step it up to that next level. So if you're reading through this series and you're on volume 3, volume 4, and you're enjoying it and it's good, but you're looking for that little extra something, keep reading, because volume 7 is where it starts to get real, I feel like, and I feel like my emotions really became involved. So in volume 7, it is a continuation of the game against Blue Castle. Karasuno High School is playing the team Blue Castle, which is a very, very tough team, and they're in a single elimination tournament. So if they lose this game, they're going to be kicked out of the tournament. And obviously there's a lot of emotions, and the team really wants to win this game so they can continue to move on. Our two main characters in this series, Hinata and Kageyama, if you've read volumes 1 through 6, or you've listened to my review for volumes 1 through 6, you're familiar with these characters, and they are supposed to be rivals, but they're also learning to work together and put their strength together on the same volleyball team. Kageyama is the star setter. He has a lot of skill, but he also has a lot of ego, and the nerves of the game are starting to get to him, and kind of around volume 6, you kind of see it coming in volume 6, but especially in volume 7, a decision is made by the coaching staff to take Kageyama out as the setter and put in Sugawara, I believe was his name. Sugawara is brought in as the setter instead of Kageyama. And in this book, you're really starting to see how experience in these situations lends a hand in a game like this. So Sugawara is a 3rd year while Kageyama is a 1st year, and his experience, his level-headedness, the way he interacts with his team definitely shows in this book, and you can definitely see the difference between his skill level, not just like the ball handling. Kageyama is definitely a lot more of a natural. He has natural talent with setting, but Sugawara shows the soft skills, the people skills that really are required to win a game. You know, Kageyama in middle school had a lot of ego, and he still has a lot of ego issues, and he has to come to terms with the fact that his skill alone is not going to be enough to win a game. And while he has a lot of natural skill, he has to also sometimes defer and trust his teammates to be there and to help out, and also the way you interact with your teammates is very, very important to a game. And this is something that Sugawara shines in, just because he's older, has more experience. He doesn't have the ego of being the best, the king of the court, as Sugawara is, or not, Kageyama is called. So we have that aspect going on, and we get to see this other setter shine, someone who we really haven't seen a whole lot up to this point, because Kageyama has kind of been the star setter, the starting setter for the team, and that's just a really, really interesting dynamic. So another aspect that I like is, if you're not familiar with volleyball, you may be a little concerned about reading the Haikyu series, and I have to say that I don't think that's really an issue. I did play volleyball. I played for 2 years in elementary school. I actually would really love to try the sport again, mostly because I am reading the book series. I have to admit, this is playing a huge role. But I do love sports. I like being competitive. I'm a very competitive, athletic person. I just didn't gel with the team that I was playing with, which is why I wound up deciding to not continue when I got to middle school. But I have a little bit of background in volleyball, and I do watch like the tournaments at the Olympics, but I don't think that's necessary, because through volumes 1 through 6, the author really takes time to explain what's going on in the volleyball world, what the rules are, what the refs are saying, what the strategies are, and there was definitely a lot more in the first couple volumes just because the author expects that the reader might not be familiar with volleyball. But in this tournament setting, I think the author realized it can be very interruptive to continue to explain all these little things. So when he needs to explain something, he relies on spectators who are watching it. There's two people who I believe are alumni of the Karasuno High School, the team that Hinata and Kageyama are on, and they're explaining things to two girls who are spectators. But in this interchange, the author takes the opportunity to explain things going on in the game that the reader might not know or understand. So I think that was just a really creative use of using the spectators, getting another perspective, and it's just creative, and I liked it, and I really have to give the author props for that. So this book, if you read it, another warning I want to say is you need to have volume 8 ready. So I read volume 7, and I intended to finish volume 7 the evening I was reading it and to start volume 8, but I didn't want to finish volume 8 because it was already pretty late in the evening. I wound up reading volume 8 at the exact same time. So if you read volume 7, volume 7 ends at kind of a key stressful moment, so make sure you just have volume 8 ready so you can read it unless you're okay with sitting on a cliffhanger for a couple days until you get the next volume. But I think you're going to want to continue the momentum of the series into volume 8, so maybe be ready to read 2 manga volumes when you sit down to read volume 7. But other than that, this was, as I've said before at the beginning of this video, a great book, a great entry in the series. I love it. I'm in love with this series. I do not know why I waited so long to read it. I'm pushing it down the throats of everyone who I know who reads manga because I think they should read the series, and I think this volume is really where it stepped it up and I started to become emotionally involved in the characters. This is a 5-star, easy. It is a great read. I would highly recommend it if you love manga. If you aren't sure about starting manga, I feel like this is a great series to start with. I can't recommend it enough, and I'm so excited to see where this series is going. I did think that this was a very short series, but not a short series. My library only has volumes 1 through 10, but I think it's like 45 volumes, so I'm kind of setting myself up for a commitment here, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm loving it, and I'm emotionally invested, and it's a 5-star read, and I highly, highly recommend it. So if you have any thoughts on the series or if anything else you'd like to add to this review, please put it in the comments below. I read them. I love to hear about your comments. Or if you have any other sports manga suggestions that you think I might like, I'm down for them. I'm happy to give them a try. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.